artwork her entire life, from her professional career in graphic design to becoming an art director for one of Australia's leading publications. As a mixed media artist and tutor, focusing on printmaking, collage, fibre arts and photography, Tara draws inspiration from her hometown in Sydney, Australia, and lives a truly creative life. Currently exploring found objects, patterns and textures within her art practice, Tara's passion is to abstract the essence of a place to create something new, giving the viewer an opportunity to experience something they may have previously overlooked with fresh eyes. Tara's work seems to effortlessly create a connection to and reflect a sense of place. For her, joy is found in seeking out unique pieces that someone else has created by hand. She loves the tactile, textural pieces that distill the essence of the Australian landscape into something that reflects the colours, patterns and textures of our natural surroundings. Tara has an unquenched curiosity, not only for exploring nature, but for learning and teaching. She is an expert in finding pockets of time to ensure she creates every day and is a firm believer of living a creative life. Tara loves teaching people how to do the same in her popular online and in-person workshops, where the core theme is pockets of time. Tara is disciplined, focused, and fun-loving, with one of her students perfectly describing her online course as playing with a plan. Tara's beautiful abstract watercolours can be found in private collections throughout the world. She regularly contributes to exhibitions and was recently invited by Saatchi Gallery in London to feature as a guest artist, creating a lovely collage tutorial especially for the kids. I've had the absolute pleasure of collaborating with Tara over the past 12 months as she took an absolute leap of faith and became our first official Fibre Arts Take 2 tutor. Little did we know at the time how important building online creative communities would become. And I can't wait to share Tara's wonderful work and insights into her creative practice with you all this evening. So let's get started. Hello.
Hello.
I got a bit emotional. I got a bit emotional listening back to that. Like, it's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it?
Sure has. Yes. Yeah. I was thinking that today when we filmed everything, we were kind of thinking, when you go away, when you travel, this is how you film, this is how you document your sense of place. And then today I was thinking, well, if you sign up for the course, it's also how you can armchair travel. All those people that wanted to come to Australia and see a little bit of bush, you can actually do that in the course.
Yeah. Who knew when we filmed that? Who knew? But no, I meant every word of it. It's just been so great working with you, and it was really easy to write that intro tonight because I did it yesterday. But I do feel like I do know you and consider you a friend. So
and thank you for those lovely words.
Oh, you're welcome. So we've got people watching, which is lovely. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another Friday Feature Artist. I'm very, very happy to have you here. Please say hello to Tara in the comments. And if you have any questions, I'd love to put them to Tara on your behalf. So just make the comments in the little thread underneath the video and we'll get there. So Janet, hi, Janet. Good morning from England. And isn't that beautiful to have people from all over the world? Hi, Catherine from Auckland. Oh, it's late evening. Yeah. It's about, 7 here. So I'm not sure the time, the New Zealand time. Or actually, we should have an New Zealand tutor coming up. So I'll have to learn that, which will be exciting. But, I'm Patricia from the Northern Rivers. Hi, beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And Janet. Hi, Janet. So you're based in Sydney, Tara. Tell us a little bit about where you are and why you love where you live.
So I'm near Manly, so on the northern beaches. So that's about, on a good day, half an hour from the city of Sydney. And what's great is you've got that kind of suburban lifestyle. So when I was having a family, I just thought it would be nice to have that sense of they can ride their bikes to school and have that sort of childhood that I had, because there was a lot to be said for that simplicity of that. But also I've got the bush and then the beach. So that's been amazing, especially in the last few months that I had more time to explore that, the mix of both. So I'm really lucky to have both those things nearby.
Yeah. I've obviously been to your place and in your beautiful studio where you are now, and it is true. There's just, the beaches are at your doorstep and the bush as well. So, which is something I really love, being where we live as well, just to walk across the road and into a state forest. And when I met you, I actually wasn't living in this house. I don't think we were, because we've moved a little bit. And it was just so great because I was like, oh my God, there's a state forest next door. I'm going to be like Tara Axford.
And it is interesting. People do sort of message me and say, wow, this environment that you live in is just amazing. And yes, it is. And I'm lucky. But also, there's a fairly main road just out there. There's corner shops. There's all the sort of visual clutter of the suburbs as well. So, I am sort of seeing it through a particular viewfinder, and that's what I'm sharing, because you don't really need to see the post box and, all those sort of everyday things.
Yeah, of course. Your work is beautifully curated, absolutely beautifully curated. We've got so many people here, some of your students. Hi, Susan. It is raining here in Melbourne. Kaiten here. Hi, Francie.
Oh, anticipation, no pressure.
No pressure, I know. It is quite nerve-wracking doing these things. So, yes,
yeah,
very
inspiring. And I'm following on from Alice.
Yes, I know. Good to be back. Oh, hi, Noni. Thank you so much. So, Tara, did you always envision your life as an artist? How did you come to be a mixed media artist?
Well, that was interesting when you asked a similar thing to Alice, and she almost just basically said it's a way of life. And I kind of think, yes, there is that element of the way that you approach something. So maybe that, I don't know whether that's a nature nurture thing or whether that's just the way that people are wired. But yes, from a small child, I was always just trying to think of ideas, and I always had a list of things to do. Actually did like playing schools, and of course I was the teacher. People often did leave the room, but yeah, it was always, I think for those of you in my course, you probably heard me say this, that my parents had a desk and my sister and I had a desk next to them, and I just assumed that everyone grew up with desks, and underneath the desk there was a box of cardboard and bits of fabric and things like that, and it was always just a sense of, what can I make today, what can I create today, or just kind of occupy myself creatively. I didn't sort of think, gee, I'll go out and hit a ball against a wall. That wasn't how I spent my time.
And people may not know, and I was surprised to learn that you had twins. So
I've had to make up for it in the last few years since they left school. So they're now 22, and that pockets of time was a real thing when you're bringing up twins, because you don't have those huge amounts of time. It was great. So this room that I'm in now was actually kind of the craft room, which as a child we had a craft room. So of course I was going to create a craft room, and the shelves were full of boxes of beads and pipe cleaners and all of those things. And then as the kids got older, my son had a drum kit in the corner, and then gradually they kind of disappeared, and I spent more time here. And then one day I decided that actually I could own the space.
Yeah, reclaim some space. Absolutely.
Yeah. Time.
Yeah, and both your kids are quite creative in their lives now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really. I met your son when we were there, and he's just great. He's just so much fun. He's a real.
Yeah, and my poor daughter's locked down in Melbourne at the moment as well, as you are, and she's in her final year at RMIT doing printmaking, coincidentally. So that's a shame, but one day she'll get out.
So she might come and steal that beautiful press behind you.
I know, isn't that an irony? Poor thing, she's stuck down there and can't access the studio press, and then I've just got my new toy. So yes, that's very lucky. Like most people, other things were planned, and when a trip of mine got cancelled, I decided, as someone said, it's an adventure of a different kind. So yes, I'm very grateful to be able to have that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We can't wait to see what you create with it. Yeah, how exciting. But people may also be surprised, because you're so prolific on social media and you're so disciplined within your art practice. People might also surprise that you actually, until recently, held down a full-time job, and now it's part-time, being 4 days. You're an art director, like, for one of Australia's major publications. How do you do that and still create the body of work that you do?
Well, you know that phrase that people, and especially when I did have young twins, people always said, if you want a job done, you know that thing about you give a busy person something to do, and that kind of thing, whatever that phrase actually is.
Person, yeah.
And so I suppose work and doing all of this is a similar kind of thing. But I guess there'd be lots of people out there that they have a day job, and you know, for that, we're grateful for that, but also maybe it doesn't satisfy some other need or you know, creative desire that you might have. And I think that would probably be true for a lot of people. And while my job is creative and I really enjoy it, there was still that sense of wanting to have self-expression. And you know, there's only I don't get to use Banksias a lot in my everyday kind of job, and it's not nature-based, so there's that. So it was more about outside of that, how would I occupy my time? And it just became a sort of means to an end. And I guess that's almost how the pockets of time thing came about, that because I live in the suburbs, I would commute to the city, and on the bus on the way home, as I kind of walked my way to the bus stop, I would kind of mentally process the day and then think about what I was going to do next in my time. And so I'd start to formulate little project ideas. So when the key went in the door, when I came home, I kind of had an idea of what I was going to do, and I'd head for the shed. Because also then I remember going through a phase where I thought, I need to find an evening class. I need to sign up to something. I need, you know, at least 1 or 2 nights a week where I'm going to be productive. And then I got to a point where I thought, well, I'll actually just make my own class. And at one point I did invent myself a class called Nelly No Friends, because I was there by myself. And I literally just set myself projects. And I thought, well, why can't I just turn up in my own space on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock for 3 hours or something? And
it sounds ridiculous, but I think it's actually, that is it's actually a really smart thing to do.
You know, I could have just made myself an enrollment form. I could have emailed myself and said, thanks for joining up. This is what we're going to be doing tonight. But yeah, it was kind of good, you know, giving myself little projects and working through them.
Yeah. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, well, I was interested to know a little bit about your typical day, and I think you've sort of covered that around, you know, you do your commute and you're thinking creatively on your way to work. But just going back to your day job, how does that influence, or does that even influence your art or your artistic practice at all?
Not really. So for those of you that don't know, I work for Good Weekend. I'm the art director of Good Weekend magazine, which is comes out in the Saturday paper, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. So that's kind of like a large lifestyle magazine. It's Saturday's lifestyle magazine. And it's kind of the last place where you find long form journalism. So 5,000 words, and a range of politics to arts to sport, profiles, all that sort of thing, plus its regular sections. So, you know, the other day we had an arts issue, and that was a lot of emerging artists, and there were documentaries that went with that. And, you know, that's great to sort of be aware of artists and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very far removed from what I do. And also it's its own brand. And so I just kind of facilitate that as a brand, really. I do commission a lot of illustrators, so that's really nice to work with them. And, occasionally I might have to throw a collage or something together when we don't have much in the way of images to work with. So, yeah, it's nice to have that creative mind, but because it is a brand and we're working on similar things each, the treatment is similar each week, it almost frees up my mind then when I've got my creative time to draw on things myself in a different way.
And I would imagine it'd be quite corporate in the office as well. So to be, meetings, schedules, sticking to deadlines and things like that. So I would imagine that would help you be more disciplined in your own art practice in a sense, do you think?
And those papers are now published by Nine. So, and we've just moved into a new building in North Sydney. But working from home has been really nice because, the commute didn't happen, and in some ways the job becomes less segmented because you are going from the bedroom to another part of the house and then coming back again and all of that. But I guess it's just a case of being disciplined and fitting in walks and again just cutting off and not sitting at the computer just because you can all evening, and just still having that same sense of, well, this is the time I would normally finish, so I will leave now and go back to the rest of my life, which is exactly what I did before. So
yeah, it is hard keeping that separation between sort of work and life. I know my husband Daniel he works for a bank, and he had his desk sort of set up because my mum's living with us now. I've got the study, my mum's got the spare room. Summer, my daughter was studying online in her room, and so Daniel had the kitchen area, sort of where the dining room table is, and I said, I'm really sick and tired of hearing a bank talk. Can you go and work in Ollie's room? And I'm sorry, he's listening and nodding in the background, but yeah, you just do need some separation at times, absolutely.
And it's sometimes I even though there's that creative sense, I do like to compartmentalize things. So even if I'm at my day job, I find it very hard to listen to podcasts about artists or creativity. I just tend to listen to the news, and I focus on that. And I can't, I'm. It's almost that thing, like I'm immersed in that, and then when I switch off and come to my art world, then I can hear other artists talk about things that they're processing and all of that, and it's kind of like saving that as well, so that when you're in that creative space, it becomes a creative place. So yeah, I tend not to let the two clash.
I think that's wise. If someone out there listening was struggling sort of to want to find time to create, and they want to prioritize, but they just somehow can't seem to sort of create a practice or a habit almost of their art practice, what advice would you give someone who was maybe struggling? Like, is it make up your own class in the garage, or
forget dusting? Like, that's one thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely things that I don't do. And so, yes, I guess that's a matter of personal choice, but also they become, once you set those things to yourself, somebody once asked me to lunch, and I said, oh no, I don't do lunch. And, that does seem a little bit odd, but, that's just a rule that I have, because then you've got to prepare for the lunch, you've got to drive to the lunch. And so this is like on a Saturday or Sunday. And while I appreciated the invitation, that time is precious to me. And either, I'd like to go for a walk and then have time in my studio, or, those kind of things. So it's just working out what's reasonable. So whether it is setting up yourself an evening class on a Tuesday night, or if you can justify having an hour between when you come home from work and before you have dinner. And then even things like, if you're going to have leftovers, then you've got time that you're not spending cooking. And there is also this idea of, I'm too tired. When I come home, I'm too tired. I couldn't imagine doing that. But once you break through that, if you show up to your space and start scratching and sniffing around like a cat or a dog, it's amazing then what might happen. And again, you can give yourself prompts for that. So whether it's just preparing a background and you think, too exhausted, all I'm going to do is just paint a piece of paper or a canvas, or people that have done my course, you know what I mean when I say prepare a background. Or you might just say, I'll cut out some shapes. you can soon find little ways of doing things that make you feel creative, and you just break through that barrier of, I'm too tired, I couldn't possibly do anything right now.
One thing for me, I thought too, and I don't know if it crept into your life, was educating the people that you live with that, no, this is my time. Like, did you have to sort of educate your husband or your kids that, or they just yeah,
they just know I'm rude. They just know that I ignore them. Yes, but you're right. I think, when the children were younger, there was that sense of, now we're going to have Play-Doh time, or now we're going to have sketching time, or quiet time, or those sorts of things. I think labels are fantastic, and children love labels. So once you name it something, then they can identify with that. And when you tell them that, they know that that's happening. And, on the weekends when we had more creative time, again, I would be the one left doing the thing and they were long gone. But at least we had creative time together for a short period.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I don't think you're rude. I just think you're amazingly efficient. And we could all take a leaf out of your book just to go, no, I'm not going to lunch. But what is it about mixed media that gets you excited? What do you think it is about? You could have done anything, but why mixed media?
Well, I've also got a very short attention span. So I think that's kind of, part of the essence of it all, that I couldn't imagine doing one thing for hours and hours at a time. And for a while, I did kind of question that and think, am I just dabbling in so many things? Should I consolidate in something? And all that, I don't have a lot of time, but the time that I have, if I'm spending over here, then over there, then there, if I just concentrated on the one thing, would I end up getting better? But I think this is also reflected on work that I share online, that I might be doing an intricate pattern, and then the next time I might be doing sort of random mark making. And again, I like the contrast of those things, of working tight, working abstract, working expressive, working in 2D. And then I learned how to do some basket weaving. So then there was the sense of that. I mean, sometimes I think, if I'd learned to sew more and do those sorts of things. But yes, I love the idea with mixed media that you don't know what you're going to get, and that through all these different things that I've done, that they're starting to come together. And that's quite exciting to see the crossover that I couldn't have expected or anticipated.
Yeah. I've noticed I've seen a little bit more stitching coming into your work, and that's really lovely to see.
That takes time. As soon as you go, I want to do stitching, there's an hour gone.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared for that. And again, like with that pockets of time, I'm very much, some people say, oh, you're such a perfectionist, but in fact, I'm not. I'm a realist. So I don't always know how it's going to turn out, but I've got an idea of how much time I expect it to take. And eventually I will need to stop and eat or something. And so, yes, I tend not to sort of pick something that I know is going to take 30 hours, because I just think that's unrealistic. I don't have that time.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way, being realistic about your time. I think that's very sensible. Janet says she's always got too many projects on the go to find it difficult to prioritise.
Yes, and sometimes I do have to say, well, what is the best use of my time right now? Like, what will be the result of, if I do finish this, or if I don't finish that, what will happen and what will be the knock-on effect? And then sometimes that helps me prioritise something.
Vicky said that I'm glad someone else is a multitasker. Do you consider yourself a multitasker, or do you just focus on one small thing at one time?
And I don't know that much about music, but I often feel like I'm a conductor. And this is actually how I work in my day job as well, that I have a little bit going on over here, a little bit of there, those people are doing whatever they do in an orchestra. And then I have, I bring this up and I dial that down and I bring that up. And I think that actually works in my day job, and it does seem to work in this environment too. So this morning was my day off, which was excellent. And so I was itching to do some printmaking and collographs. And so I thought, I'll come out here early, I'll lay down the glue and the paste and things like that. And then while that's drying, I'll go out and do something else. So again, like there's that sense of working out what tasks fit into what time. So when you come back, it's dry and you can get on with it.
Yeah, yeah. Would you consider your work to be more process driven or outcome driven?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because the reason that I show up is for the process. That is, this sort of, that's the driving force. I do get that sort of itch, that, particularly as it gets closer to the weekend where the bulk of my time is available, that I can create, sort of get to sort of Thursday and think, okay, what is it that I'm going to do? What is it that I'm going to do? And then Saturday morning, I'm desperate to come out here and start doing something. And oh God, what was the question?
Process driven or outcome?
Oh yeah, process. So that's why I want to come here, because it's about, whether I'm going to be gridding up something and painting, or whether I'm going to be exploring some printmaking. So I don't really always have a sense of what the final outcome and the vision is for the thing. It's more about enjoying the process of that. But then having said that, I guess sometimes you sort of think, oh yeah, I saw this thing, or you're scrolling along and you think, oh, that looks good, I'd like to try that. Or when I saw the promo for Lorna's course, that was very much an outcome thing. I thought, yeah, I want to make that, I want to do what she did. And so it was more about wanting to know how I get to the end.
Yeah. And now I always try and dress appropriately to to my guests, because I think, it's nice. I like to feel like I don't think anybody noticed, but like I noticed, like when I was talking to Alice, I was wearing a linen top because she likes to work with flax and linen. So I was like, right. That. Oh, you did, of course.
It was a quiet one, yes.
Yeah. And it's never ever contrived with the artist. So I just want to state that now. So Tara and I rock up tonight and we're both wearing our Gorman shirts, because I was like, I want to wear something bright, but I also wanted to wear something that related to jelly, because you like to use a jelly plate. So this is actually my jelly top. And you love jelly plating, so actually that's why I wore this. And then you rock up with the Gorman top on. So hey, good taste.
Yes, botanical Gorman.
Yeah, I've got the jelly for the jelly plate. So anyway, everyone can have a bit of a laugh about that. But jelly plating, I was introduced to it through you, and it's just so fun. And the outcome,
it's amazing.
Like, it's so quick.
So I discovered it years ago at a Stitches and Craft show or something like that. I think it was one of the workshops that was available. And I always kind of am interested to go to those things, because those people have the best gadgets and the best toys and the best stuff. And there was a woman demonstrating that, and I didn't even know what it was, and so I thought I'd go along. And then their strapline is printmaking without a press. And at the time, I didn't have one. And so I thought, yeah, that's great. Like, I had dabbled in printmaking and I loved the feel of printmaking, I suppose, because it's kind of graphic, but the texture as well, and just the possibilities of printmaking. And so, yeah, I was totally in. And also for someone who, they have that thing of, I want to be creative, but I can't really draw. And when I get out the paints, I don't really know what to do with them and where to start. And then there's a whole white paper. But the jelly plate's great, because you're literally slapping stuff down and rolling out paint. And before you know, you've gone through a whole photocopy ream of paper, which is great because it's only $5. But yeah, the possibilities with that are fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great fun. My daughter loves using it as well. And when we could have people over, she invited her friend over who's a beautiful watercolour painter. And she's just like, her mind, I could see it just go exploding with the and they're 14-year-old girls and they just love it. They just absolutely love it. But it was beautiful to watch what your students made throughout your course. And I've got some images to show you a bit later of I'll show everybody what was sort of created throughout the course. But I wanted to ask you, as an artist, what is your most valuable tool? And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a physical tool, but does that make sense? So it
Yeah,
could
I was
be, you know, it could
thinking
be
that.
discipline or, you know.
I think without being organized, if I wasn't organized, I don't know if I'd be, I don't know, like being organized definitely helps, because not only can you find things, it just helps you sort of sort through the stuff. So there's that. But yeah, it's difficult to narrow it down to one tool. I suppose, like everybody, I do have my phone in my hand all the time, and I never use it to talk to people because that just takes up too much time. So I am photographing or collaging or doing something on that. Or I was thinking today, it's also like picking up a book, because just as you would pick up a book and flick through that and get lost in that, you know, you are doing that with other artists' work. And it's such a, as we know, it's such a portal to a whole lot of things, and it can be a time waster. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's, so you can kind of go from the phone to the humble pencil. It really, and it's great that we don't actually have to narrow it down to one tool, because we have so many things available now to us.
Yeah. Do you think there's too many things? It's hard to stay focused, you know. We were talking last night and it was like, you know, shiny object syndrome, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, that was nice, that's nice, that's nice.
I think we both agreed that our spirit animal was a squirrel.
Yeah. Oh, something else popped up. That's, what's that? It's yeah.
And you can wrestle with that. You can wrestle with oh, really? Do I need watercolors because I've already got a whole lot of acrylics over there? And do I need printmaking inks? But I don't know. There's probably similar things in sport where people have certain shoes for certain things and then they go and do something else. You know, there must be other similarities in other disciplines with more than one tool. Maybe musicians. Maybe like there's musicians that don't specialize in one instrument or something like that. Or genre, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Noni will pipe up and say, yes, her husband's got a collection of guitars.
And there's men with cars and tools.
Yeah, exactly. We're just lucky that art materials are really easy to hide around the house. No, the men won't notice. Vicky says that jelly, she's referring to jelly printing, so addictive she can't throw paper in the recycle anymore. Yeah, and yeah, Catherine says, I just got a jelly plate via some other artist enablers, one of whom took your course this year. That's lovely.
Welcome, welcome.
I just want to do all the things. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Tara, where does your love of nature come from or stem from? Like Alice talked about her parents sort of, you know, being geologists or geography. Yeah, and the otter, yeah, geography teachers and botanists and things like that. But what about you?
Yeah, that is interesting, because often when I'm wandering through the bush and there's someone with hay fever, and particularly in Australia, you know, with spring, you just think, why? How did I get to this out of all the places I could be? But maybe it's kind of also a process of elimination of, well, portraits, no, that doesn't interest me. Still life, no, not really interested in that. So I kind of think it just, I remember now that I'm sort of looking back over my work from the last, say, 8 years, I probably started with collage first, and it was very much a sort of graphic, probably, you know, a graphic designer's look of approaching the collage and using vintage magazines, and it definitely had that sort of and maybe like a bit of a surrealist look as well, you know, sort of cutting out heads and sticking them on different things and all of that. But then as I sort of thought about what is it that I'm trying to say, and, you know, am I commenting on something? Am I looking at the environment? What is my message? And so again, that kind of eliminated it to, well, there's already people doing that. And because my day job is already in a newsroom, I don't really want to be looking at news items and politics and everyday events. So yes, and then I kind of just realized, well, what is it that you do? And it was just almost that neighborhood thing, which is now very timely. And that just happened to be where I was and what I saw most in the week. And so, yeah, the nature started to come in. And also that thing of the pocket finds, like literally picking up stuff and putting it in my pocket and photographing it and arranging it, that was just a habit that I did. And even I would leave the house going, no, don't take a bag. You're not going to pick anything up. You are not picking anything up. Invariably, something would happen and I would pick something up. And then I would have to photograph it, often before it decayed or changed colour. So people often say, how do you glue those down? What do you do with them? And then I can use the buzzword ephemeral, which is very handy. But basically that means they're not glued down. They just exist for that time and space only. And often they are just recording those things because of the fragility of them or the colour or anything like that. And then they're gone. Or in this case, they're sitting in a box next to me in kind of varying states of decay.
Show us your box.
And I was going to tidy this up today because it's really getting out of control. Like it's all just.
Hang on. There you go.
I was looking back at some of the videos from the course that we recorded, and I thought, yes, I'd actually bought this box for that. This is just one of them. There's lots. So yes, they. But I took one of those to a high school a few months ago, just before lockdown, and because I wasn't sure on what the students would collect, and then I found myself going, no, you can't have that bit. I need to keep that bit for later.
Those poor students.
Hard to throw things out.
It is. Well, I have a nature-inspired collection behind me here.
Lovely.
It started off
bonsai. Bonsai meets the cabana.
And it's quite large. Like, you'd be surprised. Check it out. Whoa, it's big. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there. It started off just a few leaves, and then it became Banksia twigs that have now fallen over. But I tell you what, it is addictive. Here we go.
Yeah, they start off like this, and then how can you resist that?
Well, I used to think these things were really ugly. Like I really did, and then all of a sudden, ugly became really beautiful to me, and I love it. I can't walk past a Banksia now without taking a photo or just looking at them. They're just so gnarly and awesome.
Yes.
And even like the little ones, and they're so Australian, aren't they? And what you can do with them, like rolling them, like, into your artwork and printing with them. And anyway, yeah, but you don't go anywhere without a bag too. That's another tip for people, isn't it? So this is one of Tara's beautiful prints that she sells on her. Is it Redbubble? The bags are through, aren't they?
Yes, I think they are through Redbubble.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were discussing that yesterday, how one's tote bag is really handy when foraging, because you can whip out your secateurs very quickly, nothing to see here, and just pop your twigs in. And, women of a certain age, no one cares, no one notices. And then you're back with stuff ready to go.
And I love that it kind of looks like a handbag, so people wouldn't realise that you're, taking clippings off their bushes.
No, just off to the shops, just getting their bread and milk.
Yeah, I think everybody says, they've got quite a few collections. I don't think we're the only ones. No, definitely. Yeah, Snap Lynn. Yeah. Yeah, Thorny, it was hard to carry home. Yeah, grab a bag.
That's what we loved about putting this course and this group and the whole 5 Rights Take 2 community thing, because you can be sitting at home, declining lunch orders because you're out collecting stuff off the nature strip. And I've been out and seen people collecting leaves, and I've seen them do it in other countries too, like when I could do that. So you just always have a hunch you're not the only one. So it's great to find these people.
Yeah, it's like a little tribe, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And then, to look at something like this, I was in the forest the other day. Look at that. Are you jealous? Yeah. This is actually from a fiddle leaf fig, one that was indoors. So this is not what I got in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. But I was in the forest the other day, and all the grubs were out, and they were eating the leaves, and they were giving it that effect. And
filigree.
I was there. I was there picking away at them, and then a lady from school walked past and she goes, Ange, what are you doing? It was like raining and I was like on the ground picking up the leaves. I'm like, oh, hello. Never mind.
Tying up my shoelace.
Tying up my shoelace. Yeah, exactly. So any nature lovers out there that love sort of picking up a beautiful leaf or a twig, do so responsibly, I guess we should say as well, not from national parks, make sure you're not cutting things down and things, but things off the ground, I think they're more than okay to pop in your pocket and create some art. Or you could create some art in the actual forest as well, do a bit of Andy
Yes, I have done that.
Yeah. But I wanted to discuss your love of learning. You just seem to never stop indulging in online courses and going. I mean, you went to England and you worked with Alice Fox and many other people, I'm assuming, but where does that, it just never stops?
Yeah, I think indulging is an excellent word because indulging, selfish, all that sort of thing that kind of border on those things. But again, I think you get to a point where, I mean, as much as it's great to hunt down the best pastry in a new location or go to the museums or, all of those things that we did in those other lives, it gets to a point where you're searching for something else, whether that's within or the experience, and then whether people go to those extreme locations because they're seeking the experience. So it came from when I have a change of scenery, I literally want something completely different. And so with the trip last year, the whole trip was based on the idea of going to Alice Fox's rust printing workshop. That was like, okay, I'll start with that and then I'll build up the rest of the trip from that. And so, yeah, that was a really interesting experience, just exploring a trip with that in mind. And I was thinking, because it's actually a year ago this weekend, and I remembered how on the Friday I got to the house where I was staying ready for the weekend workshop. And I said to the woman, she said, what are you doing? I said, oh, this rust, printing thing. I said, but I've been traveling the last few weeks and, I was trying to keep the weight of my suitcase down. So I don't actually have any rust. So have you got any rust? So she's like, oh, yeah, okay, Pete, Tara needs rust. Have you got any rust? And they came back with a little tin, a little bag. And I'd been exhausted traveling from, it doesn't sound very far, but from Edinburgh to Nottingham where the workshop was. There was planes, buses, trains that just stopped in the middle of nowhere for an hour. Anyway, so when I got to the place, I was like, I'm just going to just sit down. I'm just going to have a bit of a rest. And then I saw this tin of rusted stuff and I thought, oh, I'm just going to have to do pocket finds and little vignettes now. I mean, how can I let this opportunity go? So sometimes we push on despite ourselves. And then the same thing, like, in the last few months being at home and not being able to do anything and not have those grandiose ideas. It's as simple as doing that on the phone and seeing somebody do something and just thinking, how can I find that out? I mean, one day I was just sitting there and Ruth from Craft School Oz had just posted on her Instagram TV a snippet from Morning TV where she had just talked about how you can cut up old T-shirts and coil a pot. Brilliant. I need to do that. I don't know how to do that. And, 5 minutes later, I thought, yes, that's good. I've kind of got an idea of what I need. And maybe that day I went and coiled my own pot. So, squirrel.
Yeah. But what I love about you and your generosity is that whenever you take an online class or you're creating a body of work or just not even a body of work, but work out of a class, you'll always attribute the class that you learnt that from. And I just think that that's such a beautiful thing to do. I mean, you're an artist in your own right, but then to also, champion everybody else and where you're learning from. I just think, well done you, because not everybody does that. And a lot of artists take a lot of different courses, and you're certainly one that, if anybody's looking for inspiration or you're always very honest and true. And
I think it is that sense of karma. You know yourself how much you really regard when somebody takes the time to share something with you. And I remember that child thing at school. You're like, I'm doing this, you can't see. But that doesn't really get you anywhere, because those moments in your life where that really you do have those deep connections are when someone has just sort of taken a few minutes to show you something, or even if you've been in a classroom situation and the tutor has just mentioned something, rather than just kind of sort of saying, oh, well, I'm not going to share where I found that out or where I read that or the app that I was using. Just when you get those little those little gems that then you can use, you feel like you've really it is a treasure that you then can work with. And I was actually teaching a live workshop last weekend, and time and time again, it's that situation of there's 10 people in the room. I tell them the same thing. We even use the same colors, but just the variety that you still get and how people can still make it unique to them. So this worry that if everybody knows everything, it's all going to be the same, I don't really think that happens. It's more to me about just people having that creative experience and finding their unique take on it.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Dion Swift, we were talking about online courses as well, and she actually said to me, I think she said this to me offline, because I said, oh, thanks so much for, mentioning our courses and stuff, and I know you do yours, and it's great to talk about yours. She goes, Ange, there's enough for everybody, and I was just like, yeah, you're so right, because I'm always like taken aback when somebody mentions, us or anybody really, like, oh, that's really nice. And Dion just said that, and I just thought, yeah, she's got it right. There is such an abundance in nature, there is an abundance. There's abundance everywhere. There's enough for everybody. So but what makes a good online course for you? Like we were discussing earlier yesterday about social media and the pros and cons of all of that. But in your opinion and in your experience, what makes a good online learning experience?
Well, I think even to compare it to, because of course that is often the question, and maybe before the situation we are in now, it was more like, well, why would I do online when I can go to, A, B, or C and do an actual course? But I think the beauty now that people either don't have a choice, so they are forced to do the online situation where perhaps they wouldn't have earlier, it is that sense of this self-paced thing and finding your own way. And I was thinking about there could be that thing where you go to a live workshop and it's great. You've got the energy of the room and you've worked out where you fit within that space, because sometimes being with other people can be distracting, but you might have created your own sort of little bubble and you've got that going. But when you get back to your own space, it can be really conflicting, because you think, man, that was great. But then you can have that experience of thinking, oh, well, now what do I do? Because that person, that tutor's not there. And do I still have that same energy that I had? And can I still do that? Or is my work now their work? And vice versa. And so anyway, so the online thing is you really do have that chance to go at your own pace and really find your own way and in your space, in your time, and explore that and keep coming back and fine-tuning that. And sure, the first time might be daunting, and there might be days where it doesn't kind of work how you thought that it was going to work. But I think hopefully that for the people who are watching and rewatching this, that's the experience that they've had, that just working at it themselves and finding their own way, whatever the course is there's something really in that.
Yeah. One of the things I just to give people a bit of a backstory, when we were thinking of starting a little business and helping artists bring their vision to the world. So we saw all these wonderful artists coming to Australia, and then you'd see people waiting, they'd only have like 10 people at a time to be able to get in, and you'd see people on waiting lists and then they'd miss out, and it just broke my heart. And I was like, oh, how can I bring these beautiful artists and make it more accessible to everybody across the world? And, how can we see inside their studios? I was so interested in getting inside. So I went and saw a few film production companies, and I remember sitting down with one guy going, this is what I want to do. I want to make it a beautiful experience. It has to be a work of art. And he goes, yeah, and you've got to build community, and can imagine a whole heap of people online at one time with little headsets on creating and, Zooming. And I'm like, oh no, that'll never happen. Like, I always thought this guy was mad, going, no, I don't think they'll do that. And then here we are 12 months later. And this is literally what happened. And the online community side of things was a beautiful surprise, a really beautiful surprise. I've never been a huge fan of social media. I like, you know, checking in every now and then, but yeah, for me, just seeing people's work, and I think this stems also from the artists that they're working with as well, because, you know, it comes from the top, their willingness to share and help others within the group. So when people enroll in our courses, they get a private alumni group. So everybody's in there sharing their work and their modules, and our tutors are in there sharing and doing ongoing tuition. But it's just so beautiful to see the students helping each other out. Like, you just sit back and just admire it. I don't know if you were taken aback by that, but I certainly, and still to this very day, taken back by the sharing.
Yes, and even though on those other platforms, Instagram or Facebook, even, you know, myself, I have my Facebook, my personal one, and then I have my Tara Axford Mixed Media Artist page, because some of your family members don't get why you would be arranging leaves and think that that's amazing. So having a dedicated Facebook group where not only were we all doing it at the same time, but also sharing the different nature and finds that we found in our neighborhoods and different countries around the world, you know, that was amazing. And I think I've said this before, that when you and I spoke about ideas for the course, that was really something that I just thought of as a bit of a dream. Wouldn't it be great if we can just all share what we're collecting and what we're finding? So it was lovely to see that. And then, of course, as the work went on, to just, again, like, you know, the brief or the direction, the assignment, the mission was the same to everybody, but everybody's interpretations were just so unique, and that was fascinating. And it was great that everyone else could see what everyone else was doing, just like you would in a classroom. But again, instead of sort of sitting there going, oh, what's she doing, and is theirs better, and I don't know, and maybe mine's not so good, you know, you've released it onto the Facebook group, and then people can comment. So yeah, and then it just kind of got its own momentum, and that was lovely.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, Susan says she loves online courses because she can choose to dally and linger. Yeah,
I think that's really true.
Yeah. Kerry. Hi, Kerry. So she's done both your in-person and online class, and both a fabulous experience. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're welcome, Kerry. Well, I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and talk about your course and how great it was, but I wanted to put together a little surprise for you. And I secretly reached out to some of your students and asked them just to just pop a couple of words down on video, mind you. Now, that's a scary thing to do.
Yeah.
So I just kudos to the people that responded. And there was more, but that came in late, and I just didn't get a chance to put them up today. But I just wanted to share with you a little video of some of your students, and they're just what they just asked them to sort of say, well, what did they love most about your course, and share some of their work. So I'm going to pop you here, and I'll click it on, and hopefully you'll enjoy that and see some familiar faces.
The Inspired by Nature course has really increased my confidence in mark making, exploring and being free without worrying too much about the end result. I've also learnt to look in more detail at nature, the patterns, the colour combinations and the textures. And something that I've particularly enjoyed doing is using a range of mixed media to sketch a local woodland walk.
Hi Tara, hi Angie and the gang. Thank you so much for doing the course. It's Julie here. I still haven't finished the course. I started in April and work got ahead of me, but I can always go back and do it, and that's the best thing. I think probably the most that I loved about it is that I could do it in my own time. I could play around, I could keep going in areas that I wanted to, or I could stop. I really loved making these nature postcards, I suppose I'll call them. And also making brushes and making strokes with lots and lots of different materials to make brushes. Still got lots more to do, Tara, and I'll look forward to seeing what the next lot create. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you, Tara, for your wonderful course. I loved your process and the reinforcement you offered through in-depth demonstrations. Your willingness to address all our questions and your positive encouragement was extraordinary. Pockets of Time will continue to be a fondly used mantra.
Hi Tara, I just want to thank you for your course. It has helped me to refine my process in art and showed me how to make my work my own. Thank you so much.
At the beginning of the COVID lockdown, I decided it was time to refresh my practice. I saw Tara's course online. It just popped up on the internet, as these things do. And I looked at it and thought, this is just the thing for me. Looking at nature, out walking, exploring, experimenting, and trying new techniques. So I stopped everything I'd planned to do in the studio and started working on the course. I found it so enjoyable and inspiring. I began walking up on the O'Connor Ridge, and this is really just 5 minutes from my house. It's an area where I previously walked, but hadn't looked really closely. So looking at the detail in the landscape, at the plants, at the rocks, at the beautiful compositions of the bush, the colour and the texture, it was just really wonderful to have this experience. Back in the studio, I was experimenting with some of the techniques that Tara was introducing, some of the printing techniques I had not tried before. So I was thrilled to learn new things. I also liked the drawing and the mark making components, which really pushed me to extend in my practice. I had such excitement in that time. It could have been a very boring time in lockdown, but I actually found that pockets of time, just going to the studio, doing that little bit when I could between other things, meant that over time I was really able to produce quite a significant body of experimental work. So from a time of lockdown, which could have been, one of the worst times in an artist's practice, it actually became a time that I'm thoroughly grateful for. So thank you, Tara. I loved your tuition, the information that you gave us, the ideas, the ways of working. This all really worked for me. And thank you to Fibre Arts Take Two for this initiative. I had never done an online course. I was really interested to see what might happen. And it worked really well for me, just being able to work in my own time, at my own pace. Everything was fantastic. I'm absolutely thoroughly delighted to have done this course. Thank you.
Oh, now I know how they feel on This Is Your Life when they give you or cross between that and Idol. This is your journey, and this is how. Oh, that is just and there's. Valerie, so much more articulate than me babbling on here, but it's just wow, that's incredible. And I'm like, let's do another one. I need to have more ideas. I need to think of another course.
I know. A squirrel. Yeah. Well, as I said, we could sit here and tell people how great it is, but just to hear the testimonials from the students, and then we've got hundreds of written ones as well, and it's really, really, really brave of people to pop a video together. And I just thank everybody, Vicky, Janet, Julie, Valerie, all of you. It was just, they were just so happy to do that. And so even one lady said, I don't do video, but I'm going to do this for Tara because, I just love the course so much. And just really, really beautiful. So we're going to open up your course again, and in a couple of weeks' time, so people can pop their name if they want to learn more about what it is that we're offering and what you're teaching. Then they pop their name down on a waiting list. We'll pop a link up in the comments. And
for anybody in the Northern Hemisphere that is even remotely thinking that they might want to do this course, just go out now and just get your tote bag and just stuff it with stuff before it gets crazy weather. And you've got all that beautiful autumnal stuff just decaying. So go and capture it quick. And just even if you're not sure yet, just fill up a tote bag and then you'll have it in case you end up doing pocket finds.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, Philomena, thank you. She says those comments were perfect. How lovely. Nice to see Valerie Kirk too. Yeah, I'm going. And that was the thing. I think that's what surprised me as well, or a few people, was that we had some big name artists join your course in their own right, So it's lovely that, and then we had people that were just starting out in mixed media, and that's where within the group, I mean, it was just this collective consciousness. It was just like, the tide rises all boats, everyone was helping
And
each other.
The challenge for online learning, and especially as you said, it was the first one, was, do we look at one thing? Do we focus on something? And it was hard to decide where to gauge that. But I guess what we kind of ended up with was almost like a pick and mix, so that if you're not the watercolor artist, we cover that and we give you some steps. And again, as I say in one of the promos, I'm not going to teach you to draw. It's almost like I'm going to teach you to see. And that was really interesting that Valerie said that, because you can say to people, go for a walk, but notice things. But it seems that unless you really encourage people strongly, it's amazing what you think that you're seeing, but you don't really know until you have to break it down and look more closely and get right in there. So I think what I'm trying to say is it covered a whole lot of, a range from the beginner to the more advanced, and there were lots of places in between and lots of opportunities for you to find what resonated most with you and expand on that, rather than just if we had focused on one thing, and if that wasn't your thing, then that can be disappointing.
Yeah. What I loved about it was that it was technique based, but it was your process of almost like it was going into your head, and it was your thought process. So, okay, I'm out in nature, and I get this a lot because we're quite bushy where we are, and you just see it and it just looks like messy. And it's like, but it's beautiful, but like, how do I make sense of that? And you took people on this beautiful journey from, I mean, you can talk about sort of the journey that you take them on, but it was like this layering. And then once they got to a certain point, because in the beginning, a lot of the people were saying, why are we doing vignettes? Like, why? Do you want to
why are we
that?
gathering this stuff?
Yeah.
And I think that, as an artist, we are often working in solitary places, and it's easy to think, well, everybody can find this stuff out. And especially now with YouTube and all of those opportunities that we have to view different things, it's not rocket science. But until you break it down and then put it back together, and particularly in the format that we did, you don't realize that that's not what everyone thinks when they get up and have their coffee and tea in the morning, that they're naturally going to do those things. So yes, it was great to say, this is what I do, and I reckon you can do this as well. And not only I reckon you can do it, but you might even enjoy it. And then you might then see how that relates to your textile or painting or other things that you do.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And the collaging as well. A lot of people are scared of collage because it has that design component, and just the beautiful collages that were created. It just absolutely stunning. And layering it all together. So I'm really
when I
teach.
When I teach live, and like last week, I did warn them that in the weekend workshop that we would have an enforced collage session. And, a few times people sort of say, oh, no, I don't, that's not really that's not my thing. But again, until you encourage strongly people to look at things through a viewfinder, or and with the gelli printing, like, it is an amazing tool. But as I said, you end up with a whole lot of prints very quickly. And in my live workshops, I say, you're not going home with a whole stack of prints, because, next weekend you won't remember how you got there or why you even did that. So it's really important then to have a completed thing, to do the process, but then see the results, so you can see what's actually possible. And through the process, you actually see more.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I like because that was another thing, wasn't it, that we discussed a lot about. Like, it's like, well, people do, like, they want to actually feel like they've achieved something at the end of a course. So, like, to have those action tasks throughout, littered throughout the course, so people can actually go, okay, this is my task, this is my focus now, this is what I need to do. And then even, and it was encouraging to see people push through their limitations. Oh, I don't do collage, never done it before, can't compose, don't know where to start, and they actually did it. And some of the ones that are actually putting together in the slideshow that I've got for you as well, that was the first time they'd collage, and they're absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So and in a gorgeous abstract way as well. It was just it was really great. So if anyone's watching that doesn't follow Tara on social media, please jump onto Instagram and follow her on Facebook. She's very, very, very generous with her knowledge, and her everything that you share is just divine. And you do have that beautiful you've got your style. Yeah, you certainly do have your style, and it's gorgeous. We've popped a link up there now. But one thing that you've been doing recently, which is so great, is your Sunday shelfies. I just wanted to show people some of your gorgeous Sunday shelfies. And can you talk about how that came about and why you started doing it?
So funny. So in the first instance, it's just as simple as I had this little tiny shelf and I had bits and pieces on it, and it was the other side of my studio. And so the same stuff was there all the time, collecting dust. And then when I moved around the studio so that I could fit the press in, I asked my husband to relocate the shelf to the other side of the room. And suddenly it has all this light, and it's just sort of sitting there by itself. And then I thought, so not leaving the house, not getting to galleries, not doing the thing, I'll just have a little exhibition myself. And the idea of trying to do the 3D with the 2D had always appealed to me, but the idea of having things in a 3D sense that didn't fall over or that needed construction was also a little bit mind-boggling, even though I've actually done a course in that as well. This just became really accessible because, again, to use the word ephemeral, it doesn't have to go anywhere. It can just be dismantled. And so, then I just thought shelfie is actually a hashtag, and Sunday seemed like a good time of the week. So it's been really interesting to explore 2D and 3D combined, and they are found objects, nature, or little artworks, and just come up with a scenario. So I think I'm up to about week 12. I'm not kind of sure how many I'll actually get, because I think, if it gets too tortured, that's time to stop. But I am looking forward to putting together an exhibition catalogue of Sunday shelfie.
Oh, really? Okay, tell us more about that. What does that involve?
Well, I just think it'll be great to curate it and compile it into book form. And, I love that idea of self-published. And like Alice last week was talking about her little books of her residencies and projects. And, often because my squirrel thing, I am doing lots of different things, but this is at least an actual project over several weeks. And the graphic designer in me couldn't help but fall in love with the idea of putting a book together. So I think stay tuned for exhibition catalogue.
Oh, that is so great. I know when I first met you, I was like, when are you doing a book? When are you doing a book? Let's do a book.
Oh, what would I say?
Well, I think definitely you've got a book in you. I think it would be a beautiful book, whether it's Sunday shelfies or I don't know. I reckon Batsford needs to reach out to you. And,
actually, I was thinking the other day.
Yeah.
Why don't I do a book on shelfies? I could give some composition ideas. I could set people challenges.
Maybe we'll film an extra module. No, we have to focus. We have to focus people. Well, Tara, thank you. Yeah, that's our problem actually, isn't it? We bounce a bit, but I think we work well together, and it was an absolute pleasure working with you, filming with you, and continuing to work with you. I can't wait to get back up to Sydney and maybe actually film some little extras that we've been talking about. So Dolores says Sunday shelfie was a highlight each week. I loved the quirky designs. Yes. Yeah. Vicky's going to buy your book. I think we all will actually. That's really, really fantastic. So usually I play an exit video, just our little business show reel, our little course show reels and things like that. But tonight I wanted to put together a show reel of some of your students' work that was created. Now, it's not everything, but it's just a little snapshot. It's a little bit blurry, guys. Sorry, the resolution's not that fantastic, but I promise you the work is just beautiful. So please feel free to leave your comments and love for Tara and thanks for Tara in the comments. And I still will play them over the top of the show reel. But yeah, I'd love to say thank you once again, Tara. It was just absolutely wonderful and insightful talking to you once more, and always a good laugh. We always have a really good laugh. So,
and thanks to everyone for listening and spending time to listen. And I hope there was something in there that was useful and that I didn't just rave on and on and on. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me in my studio this morning.
Thank you. And make sure, yeah, everybody comment and I'll pop your comments up.